The grand wedding hall buzzed with elegance, shimmering under the glow of chandeliers. Soft violin music played in the background as guests whispered among themselves, eagerly anticipating the ceremony's commencement. Every detail was curated for perfection: the pristine white floral arrangements, the golden-rimmed chairs, the scent of expensive roses wafting through the air. At the altar, Daniel, the groom, stood tall in his tailored tuxedo, his polished shoes gleaming under the lights. His heart pounded in anticipation. Today was the day he had waited for, the day he would claim his bride. Then, a hush spread through the crowd as Roseline entered in her pristine white gown, her beauty undeniable yet laced with an arrogance only a few could recognize. She walked with poise, fully aware of the admiring gazes trailing her every step. To the world, she was perfection itself. Among the guests, Charles and Gloria sat side by side, both attending the wedding without knowing the deep wounds Roseline had inflicted on each of them. Charles was here for his own reasons, curious to witness the union of a woman who once discarded him. Gloria, on the other hand, had come as a guest, unaware that fate had brought her face to face with the woman who had once humiliated her beyond words. Just as the minister was about to begin officiating the wedding, Gloria's gaze locked onto Roseline's face. A shockwave ran through her, the past slamming into her like a tidal wave. At first, Gloria watched the bride with casual disinterest, her mind wandering. But then, Roseline turned slightly, allowing the light to hit her face in a way that uncovered a cruelly familiar smirk. Time seemed to slow. Gloria's chest tightened. A flash of memory, her own face, drenched in tears, as this very woman stood above her, laughing at her misery. Her fingers curled into fists. Heat surged through her veins, and before she could think, she was on her feet. Without a second thought, she sprang from her seat, dashing toward the altar. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, her elegant gown billowing as gasps filled the hall. Murmurs turned into frantic whispers, eyes widening at the sight of a woman charging toward the bride with reckless abandon. Roseline barely had time to react before Gloria reached her. A deafening slap cracked through the air as Gloria's palm met Roseline's cheek with an unrelenting force. The minister stumbled backward, the guests collectively gasping in horror. "You bitch!" Gloria's voice rang through the silent church. "Did you think you could destroy me and go scot-free? This wedding will never hold." For a brief second, there was a stunned pause. The minister's voice trailed off. The air itself felt frozen. Then, smack. The slap echoed through the massive hall like a gunshot. Roseline staggered, her veil slipping from her head, exposing the disbelief and rage in her eyes. At the other end, Charles watched in shock. He had never seen Gloria like this, so fierce, so filled with righteous fury. His confusion deepened. What exactly was happening? What history did Gloria and Roseline share? Daniel, the groom, stood frozen. His dream wedding had just spiraled into chaos before his very eyes. He turned to Roseline, then to Gloria, trying to piece together the madness that had seized control of what was supposed to be the happiest day of his life. Panic gripped the guests. Some stood, whispering to each other, their confusion giving way to unease. And then, one by one, they began to leave. The whispers turned to murmurs, then hushed agreements. A wedding surrounded by such scandal? They wanted no part of it. At first, murmurs spread. Some guests exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to stay or go. Then the whispers turned to gossip. A woman in a floral gown grabbed her husband's arm. "Did you hear that? Scandal at a wedding?" Finally, a ripple effect. One by one, chairs scraped against the floor as people excused themselves. A bridesmaid in pink high heels grabbed her clutch and hurried out, her heels clicking loudly in the silence. The minister awkwardly closed his book, pretending not to look at Daniel's horrified expression. Roseline's reputation, once pristine, now lay in shambles at the altar. Gloria wasn't stopping. Her anger burned too hot, her voice sharp as she confronted Roseline in front of everyone. That was when Charles, still processing everything, realized he had to step in. He couldn't let this continue, no matter what past hurt Gloria carried. Without hesitation, he strode to the altar and grabbed Gloria by the arm. "That's enough," he murmured firmly. But she barely heard him, her rage still controlling her. He gave her a gentle yet strong pull. "Gloria, it's done. Let's go." She blinked, the fire in her eyes flickering as reality set in. Around them, the once-packed wedding hall was almost empty. The guests had all but vanished. The minister looked awkwardly between Roseline and Daniel, as if unsure what to do. The wedding was effectively ruined. With one last glance at Roseline, Gloria allowed Charles to lead her away. They left the wedding together, stepping into the cool evening air. The damage had been done. The wedding had collapsed before it could even begin. Just as Gloria had sworn it would. As for Roseline, she stood alone at the altar, her world crashing down around her, her past sins returning to haunt her in the most unforgiving way. Roseline swayed slightly, staring at the empty hall. Her hands trembled as she touched her stinging cheek, the ghost of Gloria's slap still burning. Daniel was gone. The guests were gone. The dream wedding she'd built in her head had collapsed like a house of cards. For the first time in years, she felt small. Her breathing hitched as she sank to her knees, gripping the silk of her dress. No cameras flashed. No admirers applauded her beauty. There was no one left to pretend for. And in that silence, a terrifying thought gripped her chest: what if she was finally, truly, alone?